The cameras flashed. The crowd froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
Right.
Picture a perfectly lit living room. The holidays are here, the tree is glowing, and smiling parents are watching their adorable children excitedly tear into beautifully wrapped Christmas presents.
It is, a portrait of absolute domestic bliss.
Exactly. And millions of viewers at home are tuning in, feeling this warm, fuzzy connection to a picture-perfect family.
It's the kind of image that sells magazines, secures massive brand deals, and just keeps audiences coming back week after week.
But then the director yells, "Cut!" The heavy production lights power down, the cameras turn off, and the second the crew steps away, the smiles completely drop. Those wonderful Christmas presents the kids just opened, they are immediately taken away.
Wow.
Just box right back up. The holiday joy was nothing but a highly orchestrated prop, and for 22-year-old Collin Gosselin, that fake reality was his entire childhood. Which brings us to the headline making waves across the internet right now. Colin Gosselin says the truth about his childhood is finally coming out.
And it is a truth that is shaking up everything we thought we knew about family broadcasting.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we are taking a deep dive into the upcoming explosive memoir from Colin, titled In the Shadow of 8. It is slated to hit shelves this upcoming October 13th, 2026.
And to really understand what is happening here, we aren't just looking at celebrity gossip. We've pulled together a really fascinating stack of sources for you. We have the latest entertainment reports, sure, but we also have an actual 2010 legal document from the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry.
Yeah, that document is wild. And to give us the critical legal context, we're digging into a very comprehensive Duke Law Journal article that details the severe, almost unbelievable lack of legal protections for children on reality television.
So, as we get into this, I want you to think about the reality shows you consume, the family vloggers you might follow on social media. We're going to help you look beyond the screen today to understand the complex and frankly shockingly unregulated machine that turns childhoods into our entertainment.
Because it's a machine that has operated with very few guardrails for a very long time. And Colin's book is threatening to pull the curtain back entirely on how that machine operates mechanically behind the scenes.
Okay, let's unpack this because the claims coming out of this memoir are incredibly dark. Colin is 22 now, and his book promises to detail how he was essentially erased by the massive institutions and the entourage that surrounded his family's fame.
Right, erased from his own life, essentially.
Yeah. The promotional materials mention him being held down.
Yeah.
They mention a basement cell where he claims he was hidden for years, sometimes zip-tied.
Zip-tied, it's just so hard to even process that.
It really is. And perhaps most shockingly, being forced to take a cocktail of powerful antipsychotics when he was just 11 years old. Paris Hilton even provided a quote for the book, praising Colin for surviving institutional trauma and turning his pain into purpose.
Which is a heavy endorsement. Given Paris Hilton's own very public advocacy regarding the troubled teen industry and institutional abuse, she clearly recognizes a parallel in his story.
But wait, I have to stop you there, because as a viewer, I'm trying to figure out the logistics of this. You have a massive network camera crew in your house.
Right.
Lighting guys, sound technicians, producers walking through the halls. How is it physically possible for abuse of this magnitude, like zip-tying a child, to happen under the noses of dozens of working professionals? It's just hard to imagine how that stays hidden with that much foot traffic.
Well, that is the most common question people have, and the answer actually lies in the mechanics of television production. Reality TV is not a 247 security feed. Producers are setting up specific scenes during very specific hours.
Okay, so it's scheduled.
Exactly. Once they get the footage they need,
Yeah.
The family dinner, the orchestrated playtime they pack up, the crew leaves, the doors close. Furthermore, Colin claims that in 2016, when he started telling his teachers about what was happening at home, he was immediately sent away to a facility called Fairmont Behavioral Health.
Wow.
Yeah, he alleges he was removed from the environment specifically to keep the secrets hidden from those outside observers.
And that's not even the wildest part, because wait until you hear how the rest of the family is reacting to this.
Yeah, it gets really complicated.
I hear what Colin is saying, and it's horrible, but to play devil's advocate here, we have to look at the whole family. Mady, his 22-year-old sister, tells a completely different story.
A starkly different story.
She claims that Colin was the one exhibiting hateful, violent behavior based on race, gender, and religion. She alleges he physically threatened every single member of their immediate family.
Right.
And Kate Gosselin's attorney, Richard Puello, went on the record explicitly denying the abuse claims, stating Kate never intentionally harmed her children in any way. With reality TV, everyone is trained to spin a narrative. How do we figure out who is telling the truth when the whole family's baseline reality is this distorted?
It's incredibly difficult, and we have to view this neutrally as a family in profound distress. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, this fractured reality is exactly what the researchers in the Duke Law Journal article point out.
Okay, how so?
They specifically outline damage to the family and family tensions as a primary documented harm of reality TV. The industry doesn't just casually film a family. It actively engineers a pressure cooker.
What do you mean by engineer? Like on purpose?
Mechanically, yes. Producers need conflict to retain viewership. So they utilize tactics like sleep deprivation, or they isolate siblings to film those direct-to-camera confessionals where they are actually encouraged to talk poorly about each other.
Oh, wow.
Right. They pit children against one another for screen time, which translates directly to parental approval and financial reward. You are taking normal, everyday sibling rivalries and monetizing them. Over a decade, that environment permanently fractures sibling relationships and completely destroys the baseline trust a family needs.
So you end up with these divergent realities where siblings living in the exact same house experience two completely different childhoods.
Exactly.
Which really explains why Colin's current life looks so different. He lives with his father, Jon Gosselin, now, and he recently posted a very public tribute to Jon's ex-girlfriend, Colleen Conrad, calling her his real mom and emphasizing that she chose him. It's just a stark contrast to his relationship with the rest of the household.
Yeah, the psychological toll is immense.
If you're loving these Hollywood twists and deep dives, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead.
Definitely hit that button.
So, if the psychological toll is this well documented, it begs the question of where the adults in the room are. I mean, if you put a kid to work in a meatpacking plant, the government shuts it down tomorrow.
Without a doubt.
Why doesn't the Department of Labor just walk onto a reality TV set and pull the plug?
Because the legal framework surrounding child labor in entertainment is full of massive blind spots. In the eyes of federal law, specifically the Fair Labor Standards Act or the FLSA, the entertainment industry is explicitly excluded from federal child labor protections.
Wait, excluded entirely? Why?
Historically, child actors were seen as special cases. Acting was considered an art form, a unique opportunity, rather than, grueling physical labor. Because of that federal exclusion, regulating child labor in entertainment is left entirely up to a patchwork of state laws.
But even so, child actors on sitcoms or in movies have protections, right? They have studio teachers, limited hours, mandatory breaks.
Yes, because they are classified legally as employees who are reading a script, and they are backed by powerful unions like SAG-AFTRA. But reality TV exploits a completely different legal definition.
Okay.
Networks classify children on unscripted shows not as employees, but as participants in a documentary or contest players.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So legally, it's a loophole. It's almost like if I owned a dangerous coal mine, but I called it an underground experiential summer camp for boys, just so I didn't have to follow OSHA safety regulations or pay them a minimum wage. Is that seriously how the networks are treating this?
That analogy is frighteningly accurate. To pull that off legally, networks rely on something called the primary beneficiary test. They argue to the courts that the child is the primary beneficiary of the show, not the network.
Unbelievable.
They claim the kid is getting life experiences, travel, or the opportunity to be on television, and therefore they aren't engaged in an employer-employee relationship. They're just living their lives while a camera happens to be there.
Even though the network is making millions of dollars selling ad space against that child's image. That is wild. And the Duke Law paper gives some really disturbing examples of how this plays out in the real world. Do you remember this show, Kid Nation?
Oh, yes, from 2007. It was incredibly controversial.
Right. They took 40 kids, ages 8 to 15, out of school and put them in a deserted ghost town in New Mexico to build a society without adults. The Duke Law paper notes that kids were left to cook and clean entirely on their own. As a result, children suffered grease burns from cooking equipment.
Which is awful.
Some children accidentally drank bleach because it was left in unmarked bottles. And when people raised red flags about child labor, the network's defense was literally the summer camp argument. They claimed the $5,000 the kids received weren't salaries, they were stipends,
Yeah.
exactly, to dodge labor laws.
By calling it a stipend, they actively dodged employer liability. If they were employees, drinking bleach on the job would be a massive occupational safety violation. But as participants, the legal liability shifts. The paper also brings up the infamous balloon boy hoax.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, a 6-year-old boy was forced by his parents to lie to the entire country about being trapped in a runaway hot air balloon, all to secure reality TV fame. The psychological stress of maintaining that lie was so intense that the 6-year-old literally vomited on live television during an interview.
It's child labor, but it's disguised as family life or a wacky social experiment. And later in the episode, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming when an actual government agency stepped in to investigate one of these families.
Because eventually they did try to look into the Gosselin family.
Yes, we have a formal letter from the Pennsylvania Bureau of Labor Law Compliance dated March 2010. This gives us a really rare glimpse into how the state tries to enforce these flimsy laws.
Let's look at what this investigation actually found.
They looked into Jon and Kate, plus 8. The twins were 9. The sextuplets were 5 at the time. Mechanically, the document outlines their working conditions. These 5-year-olds were filming 4 to 6 hours a day, 2 to 3 days a week. And sometimes they were filming right up until 7 p.m. on school nights.
Which is a massive amount of highly structured, demanding time for a kindergartner.
Now, the findings in this document are very specific, and we need to be impartial about them. The Bureau stated that through their investigation, they found no evidence of transgressions regarding the physical treatment of the children.
That is an important legal distinction.
Huh?
A labor bureau went in looking for physical maltreatment on the set, and at that specific time, they did not find it.
Right. However, they didn't just give the network a pass. The Bureau determined that despite what TLC claimed about the kids just being participants living their normal lives, these children were employed.
Yep.
The state basically said, no, this is a job, they are working. And because they were working, child labor permits were absolutely required.
And this is where the state forced a resolution. To avoid prosecution, the network and the production company, Figure 8 Films, were forced to establish irrevocable trust accounts for the children. They were mandated to place at least 15% of the show's gross proceeds into these accounts, which the kids couldn't touch until they turned 18.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why 15%? Where does that specific number come from?
It goes back to something called a Coogan account. Jackie Coogan was a massive child star in the 1920s who discovered his parents had spent all his earnings by the time he became an adult.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so California passed the Coogan Act, requiring 15% of a child actor's gross wages to be set aside. But remember, that law applied to child actors. Reality TV kids didn't automatically get that. Pennsylvania had to aggressively intervene and force the network to adopt that 15% standard for the Gosselin children.
So on paper, it sounds like a victory. The kids finally got recognized as employees, they got paid, the state stepped in.
It does look like a win on the surface, but this raises an important question. Is a retroactive, state-level trust fund enough to protect a child's well-being? The Duke Law paper argues it isn't, for a few key reasons. First, this mandate in Pennsylvania was a retroactive mandate.
Meaning it only applied after the fact.
Exactly. It only happened because the state specifically investigated this one show. It was not a sweeping federal law that protects all children on all networks across the country.
So if a state gets too aggressive with enforcing permits or trust funds, what does the network do? Do they just comply?
Usually they don't. They engage in a practice called forum shopping. If Pennsylvania gets too strict, or if California requires too many studio teachers in caps filming hours too tightly, production companies will literally just pack up and look for a state with weaker laws.
How does that actually work, though? They just drive across the border?
Essentially, yes. They establish a new LLC in a different state specifically for that production. That's precisely why Kid Nation was filmed in New Mexico.
Ah, that makes sense.
At the time, New Mexico had far less stringent child labor laws regarding hours and working conditions, making it the perfect legal environment to run a reality show that pushed the absolute boundaries of child welfare. They just found the legal path of least resistance.
That is incredibly cynical.
It is. And the second issue the Duke Law paper points out is that while a trust fund guarantees them financial compensation for a lost childhood, it does absolutely nothing to prevent the emotional damage. 15% of gross proceeds does not fix a fractured sibling relationship.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't restore the loss of privacy. The law, as it currently functions, fundamentally values the commercial freedom of the broadcasters over the psychological safety of the child.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because we really do unpack these wild industry secrets. So what does this all mean? For you, listening right now, why does a celebrity memoir coming out in 2026 matter?
It's a great question.
It matters because Colin Gosselin's story isn't just cheap tabloid drama. It is a profound, real-world case study in the ethics of informed consent.
That is the core legal and moral issue at play here. When an adult goes on a reality TV show, they sign a contract. They are briefed by producers. They know, or at least they should know, the risks of public exposure and editing.
But a child cannot consent. An 8-year-old or 5-year-old cannot comprehend what it means to sign away their privacy to a global audience.
Right.
They cannot consent to having their awkward phases, their tantrums, or their private medical confidentiality packaged and sold for adult entertainment. They are passengers in a vehicle driven by adults who are highly motivated by fame and money.
And as the academic literature repeatedly points out, we can't always rely on parents to be the ultimate protectors when massive network paychecks are dangled in front of them. The lure of fame creates a massive conflict of interest between a parent's duty to protect their child's privacy and their desire for celebrity.
Which brings us to a final, slightly terrifying thought to leave you with today. We've spent this entire time talking about highly produced, multi-million-dollar television networks with entire floors of lawyers, HR departments, and occasionally state labor boards looking over their shoulders.
Yeah.
And even with all of that corporate oversight, we see massive legal blind spots. We see allegations of severe psychological damage. We see siblings entirely alienated from one another.
The system is broken on a corporate level, undoubtedly.
But think about the media landscape today. What is happening right now to the children of daily family vloggers, to the kids of social media influencers? Because today, the cameras aren't a union crew that packs up and goes home at 7 p.m.
No, they're not.
The cameras literally never leave the house. There are 0 labor boards investigating a YouTube channel run from a suburban living room. Every parent's smartphone is its own unregulated global broadcasting network.
And the primary beneficiary loophole is even easier to exploit on social media. Influencers claim they're just filming their authentic daily lives. The scale of exposure is unprecedented, and the legal protections are virtually non-existent for this new generation.
Exactly. If the kids from the golden age of reality TV, who actually had network oversight, are just now coming forward with their trauma, what will the memoirs of today's internet-famous children look like in 15 years? What happens when a child realizes their entire life wasn't just a life, but was optimized content? Next time you watch a family unwrap a present on camera, you might find yourself wondering what happens when the lens is covered up.
It really makes you think twice.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.